Yeah, and here they were coming up on the anniversary of 9/11, and I think they took the people who had become most visible, myself and Dylan Avery and Richard Gage and Stephen Jones, and the attempt was to discredit us with this, and what they ended up doing was simply discrediting themselves and discrediting National Geographic, because even ordinary citizens who have no understanding of scientific method and so on could see these were obviously ridiculous experiments.
And by the way, you're not just putting a good face on this. I was horrified by it, but then within days, everyone I talked to, even skeptics, said that was ridiculous. It really did blow up in their face.
Yeah. So it didn't do the 9/11 Truth Movement any harm. I would say, all in all, it did good, because it showed how desperate the defenders are that they would go to such ridiculous lengths to try to discredit us.
All right, we're going to come back, talk about your book and Building 7, the key data. Then we're going to get into not just the physical evidence, but all the people that got warnings to get out of the towers while the... Stay there. Coming up in 35 minutes when we start the final hour, I got a huge news blitz on the global carbon tax, on the unfolding police state, a huge stack of vital news, and your phone calls we're going to be covering. And I think I'm going to play some clips today from Fall of the Republic, ahead of it airing tomorrow. Some exclusive clips coming up. I also interviewed Jesse Ventura again when I was out in Los Angeles last week, filming some final episodes of his upcoming TV show on True TV. And I've got an 11-minute interview I did with him on the set. And we're going to be posting that up on the website later today. All right, going back to David Ray Griffin. David, hell, I may just play some of that on air next hour. David, this is a short segment, long segment coming up. Obviously, why is 9/11 important? It was 8 years ago. Well, because this is a false flag event meant to launch this global empire and to take our liberties here at home. I mean, all the good old boys and conservatives that loved the war, I kept telling them this Homeland Security's for you, and they list leftists, political activists of all stripes, conservatives, libertarians, in these DHS reports, proving everything you and others talked about. So why is 9/11 important today? And then get into your Building 7 book.
Well, there are so many reasons it's important. One of those is that many people are now talking about Afghanistan being the new Vietnam. And just like Vietnam, Afghanistan, the war is based on a huge lie. Everybody admits now that Vietnam was based on lies, a couple lies, Tonkin Gulf being one. But people haven't recognized yet, in general, that the war in Afghanistan is also based on a lie. And Building 7 coming down in absolute free fall for over 2 seconds, that by itself gives the lie to the official story that Muslim terrorists brought down these 3 buildings by crashing planes into 2 of them. And, you know, this administration, as well as the previous one, and this one even more than the previous one, is justifying the war in Afghanistan on the basis of 9/11, saying over and over, we've got to stop those people, Osama bin Laden and al-Qaeda, the ones who attacked us on 9/11. And that's the big lie that now Americans and millions of Afghans are being killed for.
Start getting into your book. Start getting into your book for us.
Okay. Well, the first part of the book deals with one kind of scientific fraud, that is the omission of evidence. And here we have the things that you've talked a lot about on your shows, the omission of the steel in the rubble that had obviously been melted and even sulfidized. To take the piece of steel in particular, there was a piece of steel identified in the appendix to the FEMA report that they said looked like a piece of Swiss cheese. It had holes in it. Here was an inch-thick piece of cheese, piece of steel, that holes had been burned into. Fire can, of course, not even come close to doing any such thing, and yet it happened. It was reported in the appendix to the FEMA report with the stipulation, this demands further study. When NIST took over the job, it said, we will deal with all the recommendations in the FEMA report. They did not. They simply ignored this one. They even lied and said no steel was recovered from Building 7.
I mean, just incredible lies. And again, even if you believe the official story, why have they changed their story so many times, different permutations of lies? And then now the bald-faced lie. And then we have all the firemen and police saying on video, live on CNN and everywhere, get back, they're going to bring down 7. They're blowing it up. And then newscasts reporting it had already fallen exactly the way it did fall. I mean, I guess we've just got to come to grips with that it's an inside job and that people aren't, some of them, aren't ready to face that fear.
Yeah, these were further things they omitted. They omitted all the testimonies about explosions going off in the building. Both those explosions that were reported just as the building was about to come down, and those explosions reported by Barry Jennings and Michael Hess quite early in the morning. In fact, the longest section of my book deals with the testimony of Barry Jennings and Michael Hess and the treatment of it by NIST and by the BBC. That's quite a long story, which, as you know, ends up with Barry Jennings dying evidently 2 days before the NIST report is issued, which says there was no evidence of explosions in the building.
David Ray Griffin. When we come back, we'll tell folks the title of your new book, How to Get It. You'll continue going through all these lies. Long segment coming up. Plenty of time for you to break all this down. David Ray Griffin is our guest. I'm Alex Jones.